Hey everyone, my name is Mike Vaughn. I'm a writer for Geek Vibes Nation. I'm also the author of The Ultimate Guide to Strange Cinema.
And I'm Dylan Gonzalez. I'm the editorial director for GeekVibesNation.com and also a co-host of the Home Dance Film Festival podcast.
And welcome to a new Video Attic new release roundup. If you're new here, welcome. What we do is we go back and forth. We talk about the latest home video releases, some good, some bad, some really awful. But the one unifying thing is we always have a really good time. But with that, I'm going to kick it off to you.
Thank you. Yes, it is a epic show today, and not just because there's so many great releases that we're going to cover. I actually have a fantastic giveaway. It might be our biggest giveaway yet, so people get excited. The thing is, I do not have it in hand, so I cannot display it like normally. So I'm just going to have to send our excellent producer Andre a still, and maybe they can just put it in my hands. But I have for us the Resident Evil 6-film 4K Steelbook collection. It is a fantastic set coming up from Sony, so that's why I don't have it yet. It is coming out in a few weeks from Sony, and it is all 6 Resident Evil films with Mila Jovovich. Newly released on 4K in Dolby Vision. There was a previous 4K set that was standard. This has newly included Dolby Vision and some previously unreleased special features and all the legacy special features, all that good stuff, all in one package. And Sony has been so kind to provide us a copy for a giveaway. So I'm very excited about that. All you have to do is just watch this episode, enjoy it. I mean, I guess enjoying it is optional, but I hope you enjoy it. And let us know which of our releases that we talked about you are most excited to check out. And all you have to do is just leave a comment with that and just make sure you like the channel and all that stuff, and you'll be entered to win. This will be going through November 30th is when we'll be choosing a winner. There are also additional ways to enter on our social media. So on Twitter, you can go on there and have additional options for entry. But this is such a great release. We are so grateful to Sony. So Resident Evil. If there's nothing there whenever the video comes out, it's just gonna look ridiculous, but it's fine. Resident Evil 6 film 4K Steelbook collection giveaway. We're so excited. So hope you enjoy. We're gonna keep doing more of these giveaways in the future, and it just keeps getting bigger and better. So I'm so excited. But in order to win this, we have to talk about some stuff. So I'm gonna jump right in to a very hotly anticipated release. This is one, I'm starting with this one because it has been delayed so many times. I feel that fans are just kind of ravenous to see how this actually ended up. This is from Arrow Video, and this is Blackhat on 4K from director Michael Mann. This has a very interesting release history. This was supposed to originally come out back in May, and it was originally going to have this artwork as its slipcover, and then it got changed to this, which is on the reversible cover art of this, but it got changed, and then it got social media outcry from people because it was originally just going to be this disc right here, which is the theatrical and international cuts of the film. The international cut is about just a 3 or 4 minute different change. It's not too much that's different. But fans, they knew that Michael Mann had actually created a director's cut that had never really been released before. It had played on randomly FX. People had seen it on FX, and I think maybe it had a screening at a festival or something one time. But mostly it's just kind of like a lost artifact. But the thing is, this director's cut, people say, is a lot better. So it wasn't going to be included originally. There's social media outcry. Arrow is like, okay, we're going to look for it. After months and months and months, it was originally rescheduled for August, and then it got delayed again. But now it is finally here in November, so nearly 6 months later. The director's cut is also here for the first time on physical media and just in general outside of random airings on television. Fans can view the director's cut, which a lot of people think is a superior cut of the movie. The thing is that new director's cut is only on Blu-ray, but the fact that it exists at all is just like a feat of just like ingenuity. So I'm glad that we should be happy that this got a Blu-ray release. So people that complain that it's not on 4K, you have to understand whenever this was originally aired on FX, I don't even think the color grading was completed, so they had to do like some remastering and everything. But the theatrical cut and the international cuts are on 4K. And I'll kind of get into that. But for those who don't know anything about this title, I believe this was a 2015 title. I actually did not see it when when it was originally released, even though I am a big Michael Mann fan. What this is a globe-trotting, like hacking techno thriller. It involves like a collective who is implementing schemes, like money-making schemes to that are weakening kind of global systems and like manipulating like the market for their own monetary gains. And there's a ex-hacker played by Chris Hemsworth who is like currently in prison at the beginning of the movie, who is kind of pulled out of that and kind of given a deal that if he helps take down this group, he'll be able to gain his own freedom. And he reunites with like an old friend who has been working in like China, and like meets his sister, who's also kind of like her own kind of special technical wizard. And this has an all-star cast. In addition to Chris Hemsworth, there's Tang Wei, Viola Davis, Holt McElhaney. So many people that you like kind of blink and you'll be like, oh, this person's in this. Oh, that's crazy. This didn't get the best reviews when it was first released, and I can understand why, but I think it is a little bit underappreciated for what it is. Whenever you're dealing with Michael Mann, you are dealing with a lot of like some of the most interesting movies like in the past couple of decades, with like Heat and Collateral. He's done so many really good movies that I really really love. And yes, Blackhat does not compare to some of those all-time classics in my opinion, but it is a very interesting techno thriller, which kind of gives that kind of feeling and aesthetic that Michael Mann delivers up. And I know you covered Miami Vice a couple months ago from Mill Creek, and I still think I don't think he's really missed yet. And Blackhat, while a little bit messy at times in its theatrical cut, is always very interesting and just very pulse pounding and all this stuff. Like I said, this was my first viewing of the theatrical cut. I didn't really get into the international cut as much because it's only a few minute difference and it's just like minuscule things that are changed. I did take a look at the director's cut on Blu-ray, and I can understand why people prefer this cut. Even though it is only HD transfer, I think it does flow better. It's not like a night and day difference, but there's enough of a difference in how they restructure the movie. The beginning is completely different. Like there's a event that happens at the beginning of the theatrical cut that happens a lot further along in the director's cut, and it kind of helps you kind of get in, like build up the tension a little bit more, instead of like starting off with the bang and then kind of feeling a little bit of a lag and then kind of ratcheting up at different points. This kind of builds more gradually, and it does allow it to feel more like an ensemble piece. You don't meet Chris Hemsworth's character until quite a bit later than you do in the theatrical cut, probably about like maybe 10 minutes later than you do in the theatrical cut. And it makes it feel not like Chris Hemsworth's movie and more like a good ensemble piece, where there's more like character development, and it just kind of flows better. It's not, like I said, a night and day difference, but the way it flows, it feels really nice. And I think it does overall. I can understand why this is a director's cut, because there are just things added or shifted around that I think just really makes it move. And I'm so glad that did get a disc-based release. And as for the theatrical cut and international cut, which does have a new 4K transfer in Dolby Vision, it has DTS 5.1 sound. The way Michael Mann shoots digital is very stylized a lot of times, and this does look very nice. There are small moments here and there where kind of, if you've seen Collateral on 4K, it's not as obvious as that release, but there's still a little bit of like blurring at night. It's not too bad, but there's one shootout in particular that I'm thinking of that happens at night that you kind of like, oh, is that a little bit of motion blurring just from like how it was captured on digital? But other than that, it's a really fantastic looking transfer, and the Dolby Vision really enhances some of the colors. There's no like artifacts or anything of that sort. Overall, the technical aspect of this, it looks really nice. I think any small deficiencies are inherent to this original source photography. I'm pretty sure this was encoded by David M from Fidelity in Motion, is like one of the most like sought after encoders in the game, and he always does a really good job. The Blu-ray looks also very nice, even if it is not in 4K. It's a very good presentation of that cut of the movie. In addition to that, so I showed off the booklet here a little bit whenever I was originally showing off. So got the booklet here, but the disc-based special features, you do have a couple of new interviews and a new commentary track and some of the archival special features first found on the Universal release. So you get a couple of new really cool interviews, I believe, with like the production designer and maybe the cinematographer. So yeah, cinematographer and the production designer. And yeah, and those archival special features. And so new special features, new 4K presentation for 2 cuts of the movie with Dolby Vision, and a unreleased, hard to find director's cut on Blu-ray disc. I don't think you could really ask for much more from Arrow except for the director's cut on 4K. I understand people don't come at me, but for what Arrow finally delivered, I think it's a fantastic presentation for this movie, and I think fans will be very happy with it. I think if you're a Michael Mann fan, it's definitely worth checking this one out or revisiting it, even if you didn't feel like you loved it the first time. I think it's worth a second watch just to really get what this movie's going for.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially if you are like a Michael Mann completist, you definitely want to have this. And yeah, it's kind of cool that they did finally cave and give us the director's cut and all that good stuff. And I know sometimes their 4Ks have been hit or miss as far as even working, so that's always a plus when that works out. So my first title is Bring It On, Cheer or Die. And
Ooh.
it came out last year,
Mhm.
and there's not really nothing going on inside. Um, so I think I was one of the few people that actually really like this. Like I'm kind of surprised that there's no like. I think my quote probably should have been on this because again, I was probably the only person that wasn't like, "Oh, this is awful." I think people kind of decided it was not good before they even watched it, but it's not perfect, of course. I mean, it does have some issues, but I think it's a really fun movie. I think I said in my original review, which I will link in the description, because I'm not going to go too long on this, since like I said, I did review this fully. But yeah, it has a nice amount of kind of cheese, but the scares and the some of the tenser moments I think are really well handled. I like how they kind of fold in this sort of slasher trope with the teamwork element, which I think is a really clever and interesting kind of way to recontextualize a more modern slasher. So if you're kind of hoping for something like Scream Queens, it's definitely not at that level, but I think you shouldn't dismiss it right out of hand. It's really fun. Unfortunately, there is no features. Universal kind of just dumped this out. I guess we should just be happy that we got a Blu-ray. It looks really nice. Oh, the other thing I wanted to mention was this was kind of cool because I got to interview the director and the lead actress on this. I will also link that in the description. They were really nice. It kind of blows my mind that the lead actress and some of the other actors were not professional cheer performers. There is this really amazing after the during the credits of them practicing. So when I viewed the screener, I got to actually talk about just this rigorous training to actually do these stunts like on camera. And, it was my hope that even the most hardened critics that were like, no, this is awful, this is like the worst thing ever, should at least give the actors credit for actually doing these amazing stunts. Like, I'm like, oh my God, my body would never recover if I tried to do something. So
Mhm.
just I think people kind of take that for granted, but like, yeah, these not only did they have to act, but they went to like, was it like cheer camp, which was like almost like a hardcore boot camp to get all these, and they're not easy stunts. Like when you see them like this, it's not like effects and stuff. This is like them doing it. And I just want to stress that point because I think that's so impressive. I think that's really cool, and people should just give this a chance. It's fun. It's not, the director didn't set out to make like the Citizen Kane of horror movies. It's just a good fun time. So I highly recommend it. And there was no real issues as far as like how it looks and sounds. This was like shot on digital, so it looks fairly nice. Sound as well. Would have loved. I mean, hell, they could have used my interview as supplement. I mean, or just
Mhm.
something. But again, if you are so inclined, you can check out my full interview with the director and the actress to get your supplemental fix. But unfortunately, this disc is bare bones, but it's a heck of a good time. Please check it out.
Yeah, we will lead the reevaluation of that movie, I guess. I am glad it got a Blu-ray release because, like, it did originally come just to DVD only, and I think a lot of people probably would have just considered it lost to time, basically. But it's good that that did get a Blu-ray release. That's pretty awesome, and it's a shame they didn't use your quote. So, um, I have another 4K release. I apologize to our audience. I'm doing so much talking this week because there's so much with these 4K releases to talk about, and this is another example of I'm going to be long-winded. And I apologize. This is from Arrow Video. This is Barbarella on 4K, and this is a thick mamma jamma, and it's so beautiful. I love this box. Look how thick that damn thing is. But yes, this is some beautiful cover art here, and I will show off all of its mini contents. And this was actually my first time watching this one. I've known about Barbarella for a long time, but I never really had seen it, and it's a very interesting movie. So this has a double-sided poster, and so here is the first one, and then this is something I feel like maybe I should like finally get a poster and hang some of these because this is like fantastic. This is an awesome poster. Um, so you got that. You got here is the kind of a like J card that I took back off the back. And I just kind of slip in here. I like that they like design it where you can just kind of slip it in here and not have to like fold it all kinds of ways. And a really thick book here. And you got so many like essays and all kinds of good stuff in here. So a lot of writing and reproductions and photos. So all of that is in here. And then in addition to that, so you get this chipboard box with this artwork, and then you also get this artwork, which was on the one side of the poster, and then the alternate art is the one that I showed you that I said that I might frame, but I'll go ahead and show that off anyway. I usually like to queue these up so I can have like the different artwork and not have to take this time. But whenever they give you three different choices, you got to do it. So here's the disc base, and I probably will leave it on this one because I love it so much. This comes with some postcards here. So here's one side of them, but each of them had this one. So here's the other side. You get here, here, here. Trying to use the camera to figure out how to view these. Here, and the last one there. So a few cool postcards, and then you get the movie on 4K, and then a whole disc of special features here. So, oh, that's upside down, but you get the picture. So a lot of stuff going on in this release, but first off, the movie itself. It is a campy, good time, but it has some interesting themes going along. It starts off with an iconic sequence of Jane Fonda stripping out of her spacesuit and just kind of until she's completely naked, and it's like her body's interacting with uh, the font that is going on with the opening credits and everything, and then you kind of get into the actual meat of the story, which is this is a space kind of adventure, and there is the time and place that Barbarella is living is kind of a utopic society. There hasn't been conflict in many years, and everything is just kind of light and good, and everyone's kind of happy and able to just live this carefree existence. But then she gets noticed from one of her superiors that there is a person on this planet who, this blew my mind. I did not know that the band Duran Duran got their name from Barbarella, but the person that she has to go find is Duran Duran. And I was just like, what is going on? This is crazy. So that's a really cool kind of tidbit of information. So she goes on this space journey to find this guy who is like in danger of the peaceful existence that everyone lives. But while she's on this adventure, it's almost kind of like a vignette style, her meeting different people on this planet or beings and figuring out that what she kind of knows to be true. She kind of has like experiences her own kind of like sexual awakening because she's never really had to had these conflicted feelings and all this stuff. And she meets different interesting people who unlock different feelings inside of her, and it's a really interesting dichotomy of like a woman coming into her own. And while I don't think all of the horrors of the world and like kind of the conflicts are ideal, I think finding the balance between Barbarella's previous existence and what she is coming to learn on this different planet, I think is where you're kind of finding the sweet spot. I think the execution is not always like deftly handled, but considering the age of this movie, I think it's a really interesting read on this era of like feminism and like sexuality and free love and all that kind of stuff, all in the kind of confines of this really dazzling aesthetic, like this occasionally candy colored and kind of fantastical production design. And it all blends together to like kind of this kaleidoscopic idea that is really fascinating, like visually stimulating and amazing. And you kind of can get that from this cover art. It's like very colorful and stuff. And that's kind of how this journey that Barbarella is on is. And Jane Fonda is fantastic. She kind of plays the kind of naive woman who is kind of coming into her own and interacting with these different people very well, and she's fantastic, and I love her in this role. And all this practical special effects and all this like other special effects, very good, very good. It's a really interesting movie. Barbarella is fascinating, and this presentation is really good too. This comes from a 4K scan of the original camera, 4K restoration of the original camera negative. This is another one from their Paramount deal. But I think this looks really nice and organic, and it's just, I can tell that Arrow really cared about this release. Obviously, they put a lot of care into it, but they really put a lot of care into this restoration and making it look the best that it possibly can. I think it resolves very nicely. It's a really intricate textures that are kind of you can find within the like production design, and the colors are very nice in Dolby Vision. They really pop off the screen, and even the kind of optical effects and everything like that, they blend together very well. So nothing looks like egregious whenever it maybe goes to an optical effect. It blends very well for a very consistent viewing experience. And this does come with the original mono as well as a newly remixed Atmos track. So you have for audio purist, you have the original, but then you also have something more dynamic for people with an Atmos setup that can like wants things from coming all different places. You have an option, and it's great. You do get a commentary track and a 2+ hour discussion between two film historians on the special features disc, as well as several different interviews and featurettes and everything. The second disc of special features is just packed to the gills with like content like that you will just be like sifting through for the longest time, and I think fans will be very appreciative of this. So overall, this is a really great set. I think anyone who wanted Barbarella to come and like have a nice transfer will be very pleased with this set. I mean, just like having this sticking out on my shelf will be like just make me happy just to like, see it so like substantial and colorful and all that stuff. But just the presentation on disc, outside of the disc, overall, Barbarella is a fantastic release, and anyone who's a fan, make sure to pick it up because Era did a really good job with it.
Nice. So what is the so this is a limited edition. Is there like a limited disc or a different cut that's just part of that?
I think that what would be limited to this, and that's a good point. I didn't mention this with Blackhat. I believe the director's cut is limited to the limited edition, so make sure since that's a selling point for many, make sure to pick that up. For the limited edition of this, I think it would just be this chipboard box and everything, because I really doubt that they would take away that full disc of special features. So if you want the chipboard box and this really nice booklet and poster and everything, and the postcards, I think if whenever the standard edition comes out, it'll probably just be this normal case right here, probably completely bare, no like postcards or anything, just the 2 disc, and just that's all. And so if you want all the bells and whistles and everything, make sure to get this. And there's also a Blu-ray version of this as well. If you're not 4K capable, you can still get this on Blu-ray with all the bells and whistles and stuff. But same with Blackhat. But
Nice.
I'm obviously 4K capable, so I want 4K of both of these, and I'm very pleased with the presentation. But yes, if you don't want this chunky boy, by all means, wait and get like a more streamlined edition. But for now, that's what we got, and it's a very good release.
Yeah, and that's a good point to mention that, if you don't necessarily want the deluxe edition, but you still want it in 4K, it'll probably come, like you said, with a standard 4K edition. It's so weird because that movie always makes me think I was talking to a former Kim's Video clerk, and if anybody who doesn't know that, that was a very famous chain of rental stores in New York City. Actually, apparently, somebody told me that they kind of aren't dead. They have a pop up here and there, but anyways, there was a Kim's clerk that was obsessed with Barbarella, but like ended up like killing a bunch of people. It was kind of wild.
Oh wow,
yeah.
that's dark.
So yeah, it's a little fun tidbit for you, true crime buffs. I'm sorry, I'm black. Like he would pretend to be like a firefighter or something, and that's how he would gain access. And I can't recall if he killed them or just assaulted, but not good either way. But yeah, he was like obsessed with Barbarella. So that's what I always think.
Wow.
But
anyway, what a fun fact.
So I'm sticking in the horror realm, as I do. And this is a movie that I was really excited to see because even though I kind of heard mixed things, I loved sort of the cultural bent to it, and so it is. It Lives Inside, and the back again. Nothing really spectacular in the way of features, but let's get into this. It's an interesting film. Like I can understand why this split a lot of critics. Some I thought were maybe a little bit too harsh, but I get it. The big selling point is this is basically it feels kind of like a Blumhouse horror film, which that's not a dirty word, at least for me. I unapologetically like Blumhouse. But it sort of reframes it in the the Hindi religion, which I thought was really fascinating. And I love how anytime a horror movie can kind of reframe the narrative to something that's maybe unfamiliar to maybe most Western audiences, but certainly a large group of people will find that really relatable or interesting. And, hopefully people that are maybe not in that, religious affiliation should pride their mind and maybe check it out. But anyways, the biggest problem though is it just lacks focus and attention to detail. And I think that is kind of what holds it back from being like really potent and really interesting. Like there's so many interesting little threads that it pulls at, but nothing ever really connects like you feel like it should. Another positive though is it's never dull, and I feel like lack of focus aside, I had a enjoyable time. The monster is really effective. I think that it looked mainly CGI, but it was how they hid it in the dark. It felt very present and real. Yeah, but again, it's just that lack of polish that I think is so frustrating because I think it is such an interesting kind of backdrop for a horror film, especially, like me, I don't really know a lot about the Hindu religion. And so I find that all really fascinating. And again, I feel like it's high time that like the, narrative gets refocused to other like cultures, other religions. But that's not what I didn't like about it. I just thought nuts and bolts, it just did not really connect. Like it had all these really fascinating things to play with, but it never really commits to one thing to really kind of drive home like its kind of central thesis. So it's fine. You put it on, you get some popcorn, you'll have an all right time. If your expectations are kind of low, I think mine were maybe a little bit high because I try not to really like look at trailers or reviews. And I mean, because I didn't previously review this, so I try to go in as fresh as possible. In hindsight, I can kind of see why, this wasn't really for everybody critically. Again, it's not that it's, refocusing was an issue. I think that its strength, but it's just, yeah, it just never really came together. But again, I think if your expectations are kind of in check, you might still have a good time watching it. Really nothing in the way of features. It looks good. It sounds good. This is one that is not that visually stunning, so I'm not really that upset it didn't get a 4K, but I mean, I'm glad it wasn't just dumped on DVD, so there's that. But yeah, it was okay.
Yeah, that's one I need to catch up on. I knew whenever Neon released this, they kind of, I almost felt like they kind of dumped it in September. They were just like, all right, here it is, but no real promotion. So, but the premise intrigued me, and I like kind of like culturally specific horror movies. So I'm definitely going to check this out, even with spooky season behind us. With horror is year round, so I'm excited to check this out. And
It,
I keep my expectations in check, though.
yeah.
My next title, another 4K title. It is from Paramount. It is the James L. Brooke classic, Terms of Endearment on 4K. And this is from their Paramount Presents label. This is, I believe it's the 40th, 50th anniversary of this movie. And so here is the underneath, and then here you can kind of open up and see the original artwork here. And here you go, the disc artwork. So you have the 4K disc here and the Blu-ray here. And so yeah, I had seen this before previously, but it had been probably about 15 or so years. So I was eager to revisit this and see how I feel about it, because I know a lot of people, they really freaking love this movie, but it's also famously a tearjerker, and so I wanted to see how this held up because I'm a softie, and I just wanted to see if it would wreck me or not, and it didn't quite wreck me, just because I kind of I do get invested in the characters and their journey, but there's just something that's like kind of holding me at arm's length a little bit to really give in to kind of like an ugly cry at the end of the movie. Just kind I know what's going to happen. Even I think before I watch this movie, it's just kind of so ingrained in the culture. You just kind of know about this movie a little bit. I'm not going to spoil it for anyone who doesn't, but for people who don't know, it's about a mother-daughter relationship over a number of years. You start out at the beginning of the movie, you see a young girl and her parents are kind of fighting, and her dad leaves, and it's just kind of left between like her mom, played by Shirley MacLaine, and then Deborah Winger. Whenever she grows up, she is the young woman who they kind of have a fraught relationship. Like they love each other, but they also like can be a little bit extra and in each other's lives in like various ways that kind of like can put a little bit of strain on a relationship. But at the end of the day, they always love each other. And kind of one of the real inciting events at the beginning is the Deborah Winger character marrying someone that Shirley MacLaine does not approve of, vocally does not approve of, played by Jeff Daniels. And she kind of gets herself into a situation where she's has kind of a neglectful husband, not in like an abusive way, but he's always like running around and like cheating. And she kind of gets in her head, like before she even knows if he's cheating or not, like she builds it up so much, and she kind of has her own kind of conscious like crisis of conscience of like what she should be doing in her marriage. And she has some kids at home, and it kind of puts a strain on her. And she kind of gains a new appreciation for what her mom went through, who is also doing her own stuff with her relationship. That she has a couple gentlemen suitors, like one of which very amusingly is played by Danny DeVito, who is very like love struck and just kind of like hanging on her like every word like over a number of years. And then eventually the main person in her life is Jack Nicholson, who's kind of like a drunken, washed up, I believe is an actor, who he's always kind of had like his way with women, but he finally gets a chance to be with this Shirley MacLaine character and just kind of seeing their dynamic. She's a real firecracker and like always, it's kind of like almost an oil and water relationship, but it's interesting to see how they impact one another and everything. But this is a journey, like I said, a mother-daughter journey, and there's like some really dramatic things that happen. Once again, will not spoil, but overall, I think it's a very good movie. I think it's dated in certain ways, and once again, it does not wreck me like it does a lot of people, but I think it's a very good movie, and I do quite enjoy it, mostly for like the really strong performances. It has a really good sense of pace, and I do really like character-driven dramas, and I think there's some really good like lighthearted moments. There's some really dramatic moments. It has a nice balance. It just doesn't quite get me in the end, but still really good. But this 4K, this comes from a new transfer from the original camera negative, approved by James L. Brooks. I'm not sure about this transfer. It's good in some respects. This is Paramount we're talking about, and as much as I love Paramount, they're a little bit inconsistent, and this is one of the ones I feel that they're more inconsistent. I just read a review before this where someone gave it a glowing recommendation, so different people see different things. I think the colors look very nice, and there's some really good detail within this one. My main hang up with this one is I feel like it has been scrubbed of a lot of its original film grain, and it just kind of doesn't look like it's has that texture like it should have, like I feel it should have. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. It just doesn't look as organic as I feel that this movie should look for a movie of this age. It just looks a bit too clean, and it just kind of looks a little bit off. Overall, I think it's good. It's more positive than negative, but just Paramount strikes again a little bit, in my opinion. But this does have the DTS 5.1 soundtrack, which sounds very nice. This does carry over the archival audio commentary track with James L. Brooks and production designer Polly Platt and another co-producer Penny Finkelman. And then you also get a new special feature, a filmmaker focus with James L. Brooks, which runs about 15 minutes, and he has a lot of good recollections from the production of this movie, and just like some fun moments with Jack Nicholson on set and all kinds of good stuff within this filmmaker focus. So Paramount Presents usually at least delivers that. So if you're a fan of this film, I think it's a pretty good release. There's some ways I think it could be improved. But overall, pretty good release. And pretty good movie. I really enjoy it. And if you love this movie, I think you'll still love it. It's solid.
Yeah, I've never actually seen it. And sometimes I get that confused with fried green tomatoes, but that one's about the cannibal, right? Like they eat the guys at the end.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's always fun. Um,
Yeah,
I kind of
I,
wish
I like I like fried green tomatoes. It's
Mm,
I think it's charming. I like fried green tomatoes. It's charming.
nice. Okay. Um, well, I'll have to maybe give both of those maybe a double feature sometime. Um, speaking of, um, this one, I did a really interesting double feature for. Tell me if I'm crazy. Probably. That is The Nun II, and I
Hmm.
watched this for the first time along with Sister Act 2, which I thought
Okay.
was a nice contrast. So
Yeah.
go. Um, sure. So she just kind of looks grumpy and like she's just really not having any of your nonsense.
Yeah,
Uh
good one.
no, it wasn't. Thank you though. Nothing special that now there will be a digital code in there if you order one. But yeah, so this was kind of one of like I said, I try to stay away from like critic reviews and stuff like that if I'm not really reviewing it myself, but like um I couldn't help but kind of hear about how this was really not that well received. Um, and the thing is, this really isn't the garbage fire that some people like say it is. Oddly enough, this is better rated than the first one, which, yeah, I think I could probably get behind that. And it's kind of a shame because and this is kind of like the first one, and I know we talked a little bit about this before we started recording. You haven't seen any of them, but these movies are visually really awesome. Like I saw the first one in the theater, and yeah, it wasn't good, but like at least it just had that kind of visual oomph that at least made it like somewhat tolerable. I think that there's a little bit more substance wise going on with the second film, but the problem is the pacing is just atrocious. The pacing just absolutely kills this film. To give you an example, we're like an hour into the film until we kind of find what the demon wants, and this sort of leads to how they defeat it. But that should not come an hour in. That should be set. I mean, it was like kind of ever so slightly sort of hinted at the beginning, but it was never set up as far as a plot mechanism. So that's a little frustrating. But like, if you do not like Kids in Peril, you will not like this movie. You will have a bad time. I think it's kind of amazing. There is a scene where this kid gets ripped in half, and it's mwah.
Nice.
Um, there is I mean, there is some like legit creepy scenes in this, like set pieces that are just, I think, exquisite. There is a scene with an altar boy that he's like dead, of course, but it's just like the way that he's sort of like puppeted and the way that's, I don't want, like I said, I'm being very vague because I don't want to like spoil it, but that whole sequence was cool. There's also like a really interesting scene by a magazine rack that sounds, I mean, that doesn't sound scary, but there's the way they kind of like all of the pictures in the magazines kind of start forming the demon and stuff. It's such a creative and interesting kind of scene. So yeah, it's frustrating because there is some really fun aspects. I think the characters are largely likable. Frenchie returns as a character, as well as not Vera Farmiga, the other one.
Tassia.
Yeah, and yeah, so they return. That's awesome. I think them making Frenchie even more likable and lovable adds this sort of bittersweetness to it, which again, I'll keep very, very spoilery since you haven't seen the first one. They kind of reveal something about him. This sort of bookends with the Warrens, which I think is kind of fun. So I won't say how that sort of book ends, but I don't know. It's just it sucks because it's there's a world where this is a really fun movie. And as it stands, I didn't hate it. I do kind of like how these little brats get like picked off and thrown around, ripped apart and stuff. That's fun. Um, but yeah, it's just again the pacing. There's like subplots that really feel needless and just kind of pull things back. I don't know. It's interesting because especially the main Conjuring films, like the three films in the series, they always kind of have this sort of schmaltzy kind of like love is the answer kind of thing, which is fine. This one kind of tries to do that too, but it ends up just sort of bulking the movie more than it really needs to be. It just needs to be a little bit leaner, but I don't know. There's still some fun to be had in this. I don't think it's certainly as awful as other people are saying it is, but there isn't a lot in the way of special features, but there are some featurettes, which is nice. This looks really good. Again, this is such a visually awesome movie that I'm really, really happy that this got a 4K release. Sounds good as well. Your mileage may vary, but I thought it was overall fun. But it's just so horribly paced that it really just it's sad because it holds it back from being like I think a much better movie. Like you were talking about director's cuts. I think if this was maybe structured a little bit better, maybe like scenes trimmed or whole class scenes that would be removed, I think it would be just a lot better.
Yeah, I've heard mixed things about the Nun like sub franchise and specifically within the Conjuring universe. So, I mean, I'm gonna watch them, but I have my expectations squarely in check that they won't be as good as like the main Conjuring films because
Yeah.
I've seen some of those and a lot of those are really good. So, but I'm not gonna hold out hope for like these Nun films as much.
I mean, like I feel like I kind of like the Nun 2 more than I like Annabelle Comes Home or like some of the other sort of like Conjuring universe kind of things. Also, I really do recommend watching Sister Act 2 with this because it just makes like a fun kind of like what if those universes collided.
Sophie, what happened?
I think there's something here that's not meant to be. I saw a nun.
That would be really cool.
Yeah, if you do that, let us know in the comments, and you can it'll earn you bonus points towards the giveaway because it'll prove that you've at least watched this a little bit. So just let us know. But yeah, I'm glad I got a 4K release. It's fun, but still, my expectations will be in check when I check it out. My next title, it is my only title not in 4K this week as it's a stack. I know. Privileged over here. But I'm about to make a fool of myself because I do not know how to pronounce this movie and it's going to be atrocious. So next up, one of my favorite labels, Radiance Films, has put out Les Combats dans l'île.
Le combat dans l'île.
So, so that's that. So you kind of have this OBI strip, which I'll remove, and you can more clearly see the artwork and the title of the movie. So without it, this is what it looks like here, and that's the back. And this does look to have double-sided artwork, so I will turn that around. So this stars Jean-Louis Trintignant and Romy Schneider, who I've reviewed a few of her films in the past, and I really quite like her. But it was freaking my mind out because whenever I was watching this film, she kind of looked like a young Simone Signore, who I've also reviewed several of her films. So I was like, how is that Romy Schneider? But it is, it's her, but it just kind of freaked my mind out. And Jean-Louis Trentinier, he actually just passed away. I think it was earlier this year, maybe last year. So it's interesting to see an early film from him. He's put out a lot of good stuff. This has a really nice booklet with some essays and a lot of writing on this. So really good booklet from Radiance. And then there's the disc itself. This is an interesting movie. This is about a radical terrorist extremist in France who played by Jean-Louis Trentinier, who he is dating his girlfriend played by Romy Schneider. And at the beginning of the film, he's kind of like a part of this group, and they are kind of planning this terrorist event to take out this. But along the way, whenever they actually do like deploy this missile to blow up this apartment or whatever to take out this guy, what you come to learn is it was a failed assassination attempt, because the person who was in the apartment, they actually got tipped off, and they have to kind of go underground to like until the heat dies down and everything figures out. So this guy, like the assassin terrorist, he on one hand, he is having to figure out who in the organization like leaked the name, which you kind of figure that out pretty quickly, but also what are they going to do to retaliate against this member. But at the same time, he's undercover with his girlfriend at this one of his friend's house who doesn't really know what's going on. And there's a second storyline going on with this like relationship drama where he cannot completely commit to his girlfriend because he's busy with this whole terrorism plot. But he kind of leaves her behind, and she ends up kind of developing feelings for his friend. And there's all kinds of like jealousy and like relationship dynamics going through this, along with this pretty riveting terrorism plot. So they're balancing a lot, but they handle it pretty well, and it's packed into like an hour and 45-minute narrative. And I think they service both narratives very well, and you got to deal with like elements of jealousy and infidelity and like deception and everything. It's a very interesting movie, and I think it's one that I did not have on my radar at all. It seems to be an early effort from everyone involved, but it's kind of like a hidden gem. I think it is very much worth your time if you're a fan of French cinema, if you're a fan of any of these actors. It's a really interesting piece, and there's so much about the plot that I was really jiving with. So I was just like, okay, this is really cool. So recommended for that. And this is a really nice Blu-ray, as always, from Radiance Films. This comes from a 2K restoration of the original camera negative. You get a couple of interviews. You get a video essay and a short film. So some good archival stuff, some new special features, and the short film, and a really good audiovisual and package. So overall, Les Combats dans l'air. It's a good film from Radiance Films. I don't think you'll be disappointed if you check it out and you're a pretty big fan of French cinema. It was a good discovery. I really enjoyed it.
Nice. Yeah, so I'm going from your very classy French film, which I have one later, so it's okay, to some grade A garbage cinema, and that is Alien Outlaw.
Okay.
We need balance. We need some beautiful French films. We need some garbage. It's a balanced diet, right? So this is from Kino. So this is their new label, Kino Cult. So these are like the numbered releases, number 2. So we have some really nice special features here. And slipcover. So we do have reversible art for this, which I have to say, I think I like the reversible art better, but yeah. Yeah, this is kind of interesting. The director only directed 2 feature films. Phil Smoot, I guess that's how you say that. But if you look him up on IMDb, he has like unbelievable credits to his name, as not as director but as production designer or production assistant. He worked on a lot of like kind of pretty big A pictures. But again, he only directed two, which I talked about the other film that he made, the Dark Power, which I have to say I think is like my favorite. It's definitely not as good as Alien Outlaw, but what I like about this movie is it does have that very hillbilly charm about it. Like he has like actors that he likes to reuse. They're like obviously like friends of his, and they're just these very like weird, colorful outcast characters that you would never really see in a mainstream movie like, from Michael Mann or something. But like, I don't know, I think these are more like fun. I love seeing characters that like you wouldn't really see outside of like an old John Waters movie, where it's just like you feel like these people only exist at midnight and it's just like in some dark seedy alley or something. But that's kind of the charm of this movie. I think the alien makeup is actually not bad, especially considering the budget was probably like $105. Like the characters again are kind of interesting. There is like this her what the fuck was her name? It was like a take on Jesse James, but it was like more female version of that. But anyways, she has this like traveling shooting show, and the movie kind of bogs itself down in this plot where she's trying to get her like show to take off, and at some time it just starts pacing is really not good in this. It should be more about these like aliens and maybe play up more of that kind of hillbilly sort of camp flair that the other film I think was just as earnest, but it kind of had a lot more sort of going on. There's a lot less substance in this. But I don't know, if you kind of like these movies, if you kind of want to see the only other film he ever made as a director that's kind of fun. This does have a commentary from the director. It has another hilarious commentary with the cast and crew, which is infinitely more entertaining than the movie itself. But yeah, I don't know. There's a fun featurette. There's some interviews, some archival stuff. This is really packed. 91 minutes. It really does not need to be that long. It could have easily had a good 20 minutes trimmed out and it would have been perfect. But it's a cheesy good time. I think I like his other film better, but yeah, I can't even say it's good, but it kind of is so bad it's enjoyable. So this looks really nice. This comes from a new 4K restoration. I mean, obviously that's being generous because the material they were using or started from was probably maybe not the best to begin with, but I think it overall looks really nice. Kind of like the Dark Power. I had never seen this movie in a really nice restored aspect, so it was kind of fun to, I don't know, like again, this isn't the most visually amazing movie, but you do really get to see what the like alien makeup looks like. It's a little gnarly. You can kind of see the seams and all that good stuff. But again, I think that adds to kind of the fun of it. So it looks really nice. Sounds good. I do love that attention was paid to these special features. So many of these releases were like kind of don't have a lot of great features, but leave it to Kino to pack this bad boy with some really good stuff. So I like it. I'm very excited about this line. They are doing the Elsa She-Wolf movies, which I'm really excited. I'm not sure if they're doing it in a box set or individually, but like either way, gimme, 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 because those are awesome. But yeah, I'm really happy with this line so far, and I think I've covered every one that's come out thus far. So definitely check those out. I will also be sure to link where you can get the other ones in this series as well. So I highly recommend checking all these out.
Yeah, Kino knows how to get us collectors by numbering stuff. So anyone who's in the game, they're just starting out. This is the first few. You can just get on the ground floor and not have to get caught up later. You'll be all good to go. So like screw you, Kino, for making me have to buy these things, but like you gotta do what you gotta do. My next title, it is a beloved film. It starts my series of Sony releases that I'm talking about. This is the 30th anniversary edition of Rudy on 4K, which surprisingly I had never seen before. I knew all about it, but I had not seen it. So you get this comes off, and you just have this steel book here, and then here's the back. Rudy being hoisted up by his teammates, his name being chanted. It's beautiful. So here is the interior. You have these discs over here. I'll take these out so you can see the full extent of the artwork. So, okay. Very gingerly. Yeah, mostly what was being covered up is just like the stands, but here you can just get like a good look there. Yeah, so for those, I'm not going to get too deep into Rudy because I think most people know it, but it is just a classic underdog story and a kind of a believing in yourself type narrative where Rudy, by all accounts, is not like supremely talented. He can do enough, but what Rudy encapsulates is a tenacity, a like stick-to-itiveness of not giving up, no matter how many people tell you that you're not going to do something, and just how that kind of determination is like can be an admirable quality in some instances. But from a young age, Rudy has like had a interest in Notre Dame football, and he really wants to attend Notre Dame, but he's like kind of a runt. He's a very small child and eventually a smaller adult, and he's just always underestimated. He works at like a steel mill in like kind of rural area, and so he doesn't really have a lot of prospects. And then he eventually, after some very dramatic events, which I will not spoil, he gets inspired to go and try to enroll in Notre Dame, despite like him not having the grades or anything like that. Like he does not have any money or anything to get into this school. He ends up attending a sister school that's like right across the way, and he befriends like a priest, and he starts working his way up towards potentially being on the being enrolled in Notre Dame and hopefully getting on the football team. So this involves a lot of him just like being around and being as in like sticking to his dreams as much as possible. So he takes on like a groundskeeper role, and he kind of just becomes like a figure around the university of like everyone knows that Rudy isn't exactly like the best player, but he's Rudy, and he's like he believes he can do it, and he's like always giving like 110% and everything. And this just kind of leads up, despite his issues with his family and not believing in him, and he's like wanting to impress his dad and his family and stuff. It is just like leading up to him, like he just wants to play on this team. And people mostly know this movie. I won't spoil it, but like it is just like a tale of what you can accomplish if you don't give up on your dreams. And mainly what really makes this movie work, in my opinion, is the performance from Sean Astin. He is fantastic. He is charming, and kind of like even whenever he's more like intense in his pursuits, he's still lovable. And he can be kind of oblivious and stuff, but it's done in a way that's not like annoying. And Rudy is just like a really interesting character, despite him not having like the athletic prowess that he may want or like the physical stature. Like Terms of Endearment, I did not like well up and start crying at the end of this movie and stuff. I do think it's just like a really entertaining, joyous movie, but I wasn't like, oh my, that Rudy, it got me. Like there's so many gifts from this movie that I like. It was fun to watch them in context, but overall, like, it's a really good movie. I'm just not like falling to pieces over it. The really interesting thing about this release, for the first time ever, I don't even think fans knew this was a possibility. There's a new director's cut that's included in this that adds in about 13 minutes of footage that was previously unreleased. Checking out both cuts of the movie, I do think that the director's cut is it's a subtle but nice improvement with these 13 minutes, because it does enhances some of the relationships he has with the priest character. It develops that friendship a little bit more, and more importantly, in my opinion, there's a female character that kind of serves as a romantic interest. It's not overly done, but that woman gets a lot more character development in this cut, along with subtle moments here with his teammates that kind of give them a little bit extra incentive to kind of go to bat for Rudy whenever it comes down to it. So most of these are character moments. This isn't like restructured like Blackhat was, but you do get this enhanced movie. For people who've been watching this for 30 years, it'll be probably mind-blowing to see a new cut of the film, but I think it does enhance it in a certain way. And unlike Blackhat, both cut of the films are in 4K in this, so that's pretty awesome. And so both have been restored in 4K from the original camera negative. Both are in Dolby Vision. Both have Dolby Atmos. The theatrical cut has the original 2.0 stereo soundtrack and a 5.1 track, so you can have your options. I believe the director's cut only has the new Atmos track, but both are in Dolby Vision and look spectacular. This is a Sony transfer, so I really rarely have issues with what they put out. They're one of the best in the game as far as consistency and maintaining the integrity, as you can see with this, including all the audio tracks and like retaining the film grain and all that stuff. They just do a fantastic job with their audiovisual presentation. You also get a new commentary track on the director's cut from the director, and you get to I think the producer's also on that one. I think that's who's with him, and you get to learn more about his experiences with this movie and everything. In addition to that, there are even more deleted scenes that are included, so you can check those out. They've never been released before. Then over on the Blu-ray, you have 3 very brief archival featurettes that were previously released on DVD and Blu-ray, but those were ported over. But you get new special features, a whole entire new cut of the film in glorious 4K, looking better than it ever has, and Dolby Atmos, the original audio as well, steelbook packaging. This is a home run. What more could you want? I mean, it's a fantastic release. So if you're a fan of Rudy, this is a knockout, and I don't think you'll be disappointed. So Sony did a fantastic job with this one. So if you're a fan, make sure to pick it up.
Nice. I like that you said it was a home run. I don't know.
I do all the sports cliches in like one review.
Nice. I think you're not welling up because I feel like I'm rubbing off on you. I think maybe you're slowly becoming dead inside like me. So congratulations. It's a steady decline, but you get into it. It's good.
We used to be a proper country. I used to cry. What happened?
My next one is, boy, I mean, it's really something. I'm kind of glad that I made my husband watch this with me, and we kind of had fun making fun of it. So that's not
okay.
Mean. That is Dolly Parton's Mountain Magic Christmas.
All right.
Oh, you're very happy to see this, that I'm covering this. It's out of the, whatever. But yeah, so just to kind of sum this up, this is done in sort of vignettes of performances, but the through line is they're trying to put this, Dolly's team is putting together this big Christmas extravaganza. It's going to be live, but somehow like they're filming, or they're going live in like a day, but they don't have anything planned. Nothing's rehearsed. Everything's very last minute, but it's very contrived to have like these moments of drama. if you forget, well, so it's kind of funny because every time they talk about having a white Christmas and the Magic Mountain, it really sounds like they're talking about cocaine. So every time they say that, like we just were dying laughing. And then like Willie Nelson appears, but he also like disappears in this glittery magical thing. So I don't know if he's supposed to be dead or a ghost or like in her head. It's freaking wild. They have this really cringy duet with Jimmy Fallon and Dolly Parton, which is really bad. You can tell how completely auto-tuned Jimmy Fallon is. It is wild. And then they had this song that like we both kind of looked at each other like it's called "Go to Hell, Satan," but the thing is like just it'll just jump right into go to hell," and then it's like in the reframe is just "go to hell" and then Satan, but it's like when she burst into like telling you to go to hell, it's like yeah, it's really something. But and yeah, I mean, obviously it's Christmas, so it is very Christian, but it's interesting because she kind of backpedals at the end and is like she does these moments where she'll break the fourth wall and she'll talk to the audience, and at the end she was like, I hope I wasn't preaching to you too much because I never liked that either, and blah blah blah. And I was like, you literally had a song about Satan and going to hell, and that's a Christmas song. It's I don't know. I mean, it's very unintentionally campy and funny, and I don't know. Like the only song that I really wish she would have done was Hard Candy Christmas, which is one of my favorite Christmas songs. But she doesn't do it, and it makes me angry. But I don't know. This feels like something that was made in a lab for my grandparents to love. I don't know if anybody under the age of 50 would really like this, unless you're like a super, super hardcore Dolly Parton fan. And like, it really makes me sad because she's had a lot of work done. And it's like, it's not great when you can tell that it's just a lot of not good work. So yeah, it was kind of
But she freely admits it. She talks about it all the time.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, I'm not shaming anybody for that. I mean, that's your choice. That's awesome. It's just kind of makes me sad because it just like it doesn't look good to me. But she's Dolly Parton. She's fucking amazing. She can do whatever she wants. She still looks fantastic. It's just this was not a good special. This was like kind of fun just to make fun of. But I don't know if you're like maybe more old school and you like stuff that's maybe very. I mean, it's like it was so weird because it was so religious, and then she was like, I hope it's not too preachy. I'm like, it very much is and was very, very preachy. So the backpedaling was interesting, though they kind of have a song that's interesting that is very like, I think it's meant to be like a very inclusive anthem without really saying it. Like, be who you are, be who you want to be, all of that stuff, which I think is a good message. But again, it wasn't like, there wasn't any direct references to like any marginalized groups, but it's the effort. I appreciate the effort. So that was a plus in the column. So I'm not trying to be negative or shitting on it. It's fine. This looks, I mean, this is DVD and this wasn't shot very, I mean, the stuff that they shot on was not really that good. So it doesn't look really that good either, even like up converted. But there's a making of, there's more features on it than like some of these other movies, so there's that too. It's fine. I We're both big Christmas movie fans, and I have a box full of Christmas movies that I squirrel away, so this will go in there. But as far as watching it every year, probably not. This might be a regift, in fact, but you know, it is what it is.
Yeah, my wife and I, we watch like all the Hallmark and Lifetime movies, and most of the time it is just for us to make fun of it. There's the occasional one where I'm like, oh, that was actually surprisingly pretty good. But like most of the fun is just does come from making fun of these and just like being ruthless and just doing our own Mystery Science Theater 3000 with it. So I'm sure we'll have a blast doing that with this one. And I've heard the duet that Dolly's done with Jimmy Fallon on her CD, like in our Christmas listening and stuff. And it's something. So I'm fully prepared for this, but I'm sorry you had to suffer through it. But
I mean, it was fun. It was I'm glad I didn't have to watch it by myself. But since you were talking about Hallmark, what would you say like is a really good Hallmark Christmas movie? Like, what should everybody check out?
I need to. There's like, I'm trying to remember what it is called. There's one with Elizabeth Mitchell from the Santa Claus movies and Lost, and there's that I really love where she works at like a recreation center or something. Christmas at the blah, blah, blah. I don't know, but like look for an Elizabeth Mitchell Christmas movie. It might be called The Christmas Club actually, but it's something along those lines. I really love Elizabeth Mitchell, so that takes me a long way, but I really love that. There are just mainly like certain stars that I really like Hillary Burton from like One Tree Hill fame. I really like her stuff, or Bethany Joy Lynn's also from, Gretchen Wiener from Mean Girls, which is her Lacey Chabert from Mean Girls. She usually does pretty good projects. So usually I look for certain people that I really like. But also Alicia Witt, she does a lot of really good stuff too. I really love Alicia Witt. So those are just a few of my favorite Hallmark / Lifetime queens. They're both very, or all of them are very good. But Elizabeth Mitchell, love her. So anything that she's in, I'm always very happy about. So that's my Christmas corner recommendation.
Nice.
Very different vibe, but still a different holiday for this month. This is for Veterans Day. I'm heading into a pair of titles from Sony. The first one I want to talk about is the Guns of Navarone with Gregory Peck, and my mind is going blank as to what the rest of them's name. David Niven and what are their names? David Niven and Anthony Quinn. That's who I was trying to think of. So yeah, this is a title. It just celebrated its 60th anniversary, I believe, a couple years ago. And this first was released on 4K from Sony, but without Dolby Vision. So this is coming up with its recent trend from Sony where they're re-releasing their titles with Dolby Vision. So this is what it looks like without it. This kind of mimics the Bridge on the River Kwai, which I talked about last year whenever Lawrence of Arabia also got re-released. Okay, I don't want to mislead people. I forgot to take this out. This comes from the old 4K release that came out. This tells a little bit about the restoration, so I kind of just tucked it into this new release. So whenever you get the release, that will not be in there, but it's good to know like all the restoration stuff. It'll just look like this. So there's no like interior artwork, but so I had that old 4K release, so I was able to compare. But for those who don't know the story, since I'm doing two movies, I'll try to streamline this. The basic premise is there's a group of soldiers who have to go on a dangerous mission in order to take out these long-range guns and Navarone, I believe it's in Greece. It's a very dangerous mission, but in order to take out these guns, so like these thousands of soldiers can be rescued, these guns need to be taken out. So it involves like them having a treacherous journey across the sea and then scaling up these rocks and then being taken prisoner and then trying to break out and all kinds of just like wartime goodness. It's an epic in every sense of the word. There's actually two versions of this movie on this 4K disc. You can choose to do a version with an intermission, which it originally had. So you have a little bit of extra music up top and like an intermission in the beginning or in the middle of it, or you can just play it all the way through without that intermission. So you get the choice, which is pretty cool. You can get two versions, but this is about 2 hours and 45 minutes long. It's a pretty healthy movie, but it justifies its length. It always kind of keeps you invested. And especially with these great performers. I really love Gregory Peck in this movie. He has like an air of sophistication and confidence, and almost like he's like over the war, but he's like still like wants to do a good job and like wants to help people out. And like his camaraderie dynamic with Anthony Quinn, who they have a relationship that's very complicated from the past, but they grow to have like a mutual respect for one another, is really cool. Super great like action sequences and stuff. There's a Dolby Atmos track in this, which like I almost had me ducking because I felt that there was airplanes going above me. It was insane, but it's a really entertaining war movie, and it really holds up. Really great spectacle throughout. Like I said, I had the old 4K release. Comparing it to this one, I say the Dolby Vision is not a monumental improvement. It's very incremental. So if you have the old release, you may want to judge how much like a Steelbook and like just having this in Dolby Vision is. Because the reason it's not super different is because the old release was nearly perfect. So it's hard to like improve on perfection. But there may be like a little bit better resolve of like some grain here and there and like touches of improvement here and there. So if you want the absolute perfect version of this, as far as like what is capable, because the original negative from what I read of the restoration notes over the years was like severely like compromised back in the 90s, and they finally got the tools to kind of rebuild it in like the early 2000s, and they kind of use that for the basis of this 4K restoration. It looks really nice, but there are some limitations, but overall looks fantastic. And this ports over the Dolby Atmos track and the original soundtracks, which was an original 5.1 and a 4.0 soundtrack, which you don't get 4.0 that much, but this kind of like the approximation of its around experience back in the 60s. All the special features are included on the Blu-ray disc here. There are one or two special features like a title demonstration on the 4K disc and like a trailer, but other than that, all the special features on their Blu-ray disc, including 2 commentary tracks, one from a film historian, one from director J. Lee Thompson. There are several documentaries. There are 3 documentaries ranging from 14 to 30 minutes long. There are 6 featurettes that run from 5 to 10 minutes long, and like an interactive thing as well. So overall, a really fantastic release for this classic movie. But that is not the only war movie I have this time out. I have a modern classic, which I had not watched this since I was like a teenager, and I was very excited to revisit this because this is a really good movie. This is from the early 2000s. This is Black Hawk Down from Ridley Scott. Once again, it's another re-release. So here it is without the J card on the back, and then that's just the front. So this is a 3-disc release. So you got the 4K disc. I believe this is the theatrical disc, and then there's the bonus disc back here. Unlike the Guns of Navarone, this does appear to have a little bit of artwork in the back. So I'll take all the disc and show that off. And yeah, same situation as Guns from Navarone, re-release with Dolby Vision. There is the back. This was a huge film whenever it first came out. I remember like seeing it in like what we called the movie gallery. Is our version of Blockbuster here in the South, at least. I think they had it kind of nationwide, but I would see it all the time in movie gallery, and I eventually owned it like the 3-disc DVD version, and now have owned it on 4K previously, and now 4K again in Dolby Vision. So the movie itself, it's really gripping and thrilling. And okay, one thing I want to say about this movie: if you were a young actor in the early 2000s, you were in this movie. This has like every single person you can think of from that era. It's insane. Just a few people. Okay, so like the main person is like Josh Hartnett, but you have like Eric Bana, Orlando Bloom, Tom Hardy. Tom Sizemore, who's not a young man, but he was in this movie. Zelko Ivnik. There's like, if you look at the IMDb of this, you'll be like, okay, like at least like 6 of these people are now headlining franchises, and it's insane. But so many, a stacked cast of people, and it's a really good drama about these soldiers that have to go in to a war zone in Somalia to like perform a mission, but it goes awry, and they kind of end up, one of the Black Hawk helicopters goes down, or a couple of them go down, but and they are kind of behind enemy lines, and they are trying to survive with all this like war zone time happening and being shot upon, and then eventually trying to be rescued by people while people are like setting off rocket propelled grenades and all this stuff. Crazy insanity. Ridley Scott, this is one of his most underrated movies. I feel he has such a command of the direction. You never feel like it's paced like erroneously. Like you're always like invested in all these characters, and you really do care about what happens to them. And there's some really like heart-wrenching losses in this movie, and you really feel that. And but all the war scenes are done really well. It's executed so well, and it's such a great wartime movie. And I don't think I'm telling anyone who's seen this anything new, but it is just a fantastic movie. And this is just premium Ridley Scott. He was really in his groove in this one, and we have a new Ridley Scott joint coming up in a few weeks with Napoleon. But like this one, if you're looking to revisit some of his old work, do not sleep on Black Hawk Down, because it's a really good feature. And this is actually a little bit more of an improvement from the last 4K than Guns of Navarone. While the previous Blu-ray or 4K was once again near perfection, the way this is kind of improved as far as like resolving grain and like even a little bit of the like color temperature looks a little bit more natural. Overall, the Dolby Vision I think is a very nice enhancement. So I think if you're a fan of this movie, it's really worth it. This supports over all the special features, of which there are tons. But I won't go through every single one, but there are, first off, two versions of this movie, kind of like Rudy, that you can watch. There's the theatrical and the extended edition. They're not like a crazy amount of difference. There's like 8 minutes, I think, different, but both of those are in 4K. You get the Dolby Vision, you get Dolby Atmos, you get the original 5.1 track as an option as well, restored from the 4K scan of the original camera negative. I think I said 3 commentary tracks, a 2+ hour making of featurette, a 92-minute History Channel documentary on the real life events, another PBS documentary that runs about 50 odd minutes, and a ton of interviews. What more could you want from it? Special features? It's insane. There's so many special features. But so if you're a fan of this movie and you don't have it on 4K, definitely worth getting the Steelbook that is newly released. If you do have the original 4K, it's a very good release, so you weigh whether or not Dolby Vision is important to you. It is a subtle but nice improvement, but it's up to you. But either way, for them capitalizing on Veterans Day or just trying to like give people what they want and give new Dolby Vision releases, both of these are very solid options that are both thrilling in their own ways. And I think fans will be very happy with what Sony has offered up.
Nice. Surprisingly, I haven't seen either one of those. So
What?
I know. Was Josh Hartnett in Black Hawk Down?
Yes, Josh Hartnett, he's the lead.
Yeah, okay. I was gonna say I feel like he was like anything in the early 2000s, he was like contractually obligated to be in.
Yes.
Great. So my next one is definitely the oldest film that I have. And it is from 1926. It is a Scarlet Letter.
All right.
So we're gonna go from something way more modern to something not as modern. So this is a early like film kind of in the early sort of like talkies. And of course it's an adaptation of the very famous novel about Puritans that made this woman who had an affair and had a extramarital affair, but like had a child out of wedlock, wearing the Scarlet Letter which is kind of funny because it's black and white, so you just take their word for it that it's red.
Damn well production design was having fun, like just make it blue, no one will know.
Right. And yeah, I think it is kind of all right. I can see the limitations of like still not really kind of grasping the power of like sound. There is no real score, unfortunately. The cinematography is very stationary. It's not as like dynamic as maybe some like later films from like that era, which is kind of a shame. But also there's this really weird subplot with, which I've never read the book, so I don't know if this was in the book, but it's this entire subplot of this like guy and his buddy, and they're trying to court this widow, and it's really weird, and it's supposed to be comic relief, I suppose, but it doesn't really meld with the A plot, and it's just kind of weird, and it's not funny, and I hate it. And you know, you see this a lot in like the 30s, especially where anything that was really dramatic or maybe bleak, particularly you see this in horror, where they'll kind of undercut some of the more maybe upsetting or bleak aspects of the film by shoehorning in some like comic relief. One of my all-time favorite movies is from the 30s was the Blackhat with Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff. But what irks me is they have this really hammy scene of like comedy which doesn't meld with the film's more serious and dark tones, and that's kind of how this is. It's funny that we've come almost 100 years later, we've come full circle where Marvel will undercut its emotional stuff with like quippy humor,
Mhm.
which, you know, I'm kind of like a little jokey jab, but also not really, because it's kind of the same thing. It's I don't understand why humor always has to sort of undercut the sincerity of some things. That's a whole other thing that I'm not going to get into, but yeah, I kind of don't love how it's used here. I think the performances um are overall really good. I mean, especially since they're not maybe as over stylized as some other like films of this period. You know, again, this was like 34, so we were finally kind of getting into a more naturalistic, less hyper stylized style of acting. We do get a nice booklet. Before I forget, I want to talk about that. Some really nice essays, and woo-hoo.
Woo,
um,
woo.
but right. So yeah, and you know, really nice essays. We do have a nice array of features, including a historical commentary track, which again I kind of appreciate the you know, especially with these films that have a literary source and a really interesting production history. You know, the commentary track is really entertaining. Again, as far as the movie goes, it's fine. There was aspects of it that I really liked. I love the performances were really great. Um, I mean, the story was fine. I mean, it's not groundbreaking. I think there's much better adaptations of this particular um like from the source, but yeah, it's not bad. It's 71 minutes long. Again, that's kind of what annoys me about some of the like hokier stuff that's just sort of jammed in there. It's
Mhm.
it's not that long to begin with, and it already kind of just pads the film. So whatever. But it looks overall really nice. So this is a 4K restoration. This was there, you know, it's not spotless. There is still some artifacts or some scratches still, but it overall looks really nice. You can kind of tell that it's been cleaned up. Probably better than it's ever looked. So film historians, film buffs, I think this is well worth checking out, especially for the bonus features that add greater depth as far as like context, but in, you know, during the making of the film and the context of the book. So Scarlet Letter, it's is fine. It just didn't really gel with me, but I'm sure there's people that will probably like it, especially if you're a fan of the novel and you like want to collect all the adaptations, there you go. Look, I mean the package is really good. The presentation's really
Yeah.
nice.
Since Film Masters like launched fairly recently, they think they've really done a really nice job with their releases. So even if you're not a huge fan of the movie, I think that the release sounds really nice. So
Yeah.
good for them. Um, my final title is one I was so stoked. Like for my slate has been very good this week. I've been very blessed this week. This might be one of my favorite like movies that I've talked about. It's one of my favorite Coen Brothers movies. This is from Shout Studios. This is the 4K release of Fargo. It's a freaking classic, and I love it. I've been waiting for. I feel like I heard rumors of this 4K like 2 years ago, and I was just like, "Where is it? I need it!" And now it is here, and it is glorious, and I love it. So this is probably one of Frances McDormand's most iconic performances, but I won't delve too far into it. This also has a fantastic series that's been inspired by this show or by this movie. That if you haven't seen it, I think it's all on Hulu. Check it out. I love the Fargo TV show, but the movie is fantastic. It's just a story of a murder that kind of spins out of control whenever you involve like some hitmen who are occasionally incompetent but also quite menacing, and local police force like figures like led by Frances McDormand, who people underestimate because they sound kind of like country bumpkiny and like Midwest, like, oh, you betcha, but like also she's also a badass, and I love Marge Gunderson. And there's so many distinct characters within this narrative. Like these are some of the most like the Coens do such a good job with characters, like such distinct characters. That's why they're one of my favorite. Them as a unit, one of my favorite directors. Everything that they do is just so distinct and like unique, and like they really can nail the balance between like the dark comedy and like the absurd with the really like genuinely chilling. Like you get a lot of really good comedic relief, but then you have stuff like the wood chipper scene and like different things where you're just like, Jesus, like you just really get that thrill. And the location work and stuff, and like you just feel cold, like you just feel like the way that they capture this, like you feel the bone chill of being like in this location, and the pacing is immaculate. Like I do not feel like any storyline is wasted. Everything kind of gives you what you want, and I just can't praise this movie enough. Like I said, I don't want to delve into the story too much because it is like a classic. It was nominated for awards, and most people have seen it. But it's one of my favorite Coen Brothers movies. It's fantastic, and this release, it's from a 4K scan of the original camera negative, supervised by cinematographer Roger Deakins, who's one of the greatest who's ever done it. And this in Dolby Vision looks fantastic. It's a very nice, well-resolved transfer. I have the old Blu-ray release. I think it far outpaces that from MGM. It's so much better. Maybe slight bit of like grain inconsistency in some of the brightest snow, but overall I think it's resolved very well. I think when you have this much like white on display, it can be hard to kind of resolve it perfectly, but if it's not perfect, it's near perfect. And I think any minor deficiencies, like I don't think most people pick up on too much. As far as like any damage or anything, there is none. It's been cleaned up and like it looks really good. This includes the original 5.1 soundtrack and also the stereo soundtrack as well. And as far as special features, you don't really get anything new. You have a ported over commentary track. You get a 28-minute archival featurette and then a 21-minute interview and maybe like a trailer or something here and there. So nothing really in the way of new special features, but just having this film looking as it deserves in 4K is enough for me, and Shao did a really nice job. So fantastic release. Love Fargo. If you love Fargo, pick this up. You will not regret it. It's It's so good. And if I'm not mistaken, the Blu-ray release is also derived from the same 4K restoration. So even if you're not 4K capable, if you want a future-proof, you could still enjoy this new 4K restoration Blu-ray. And then once you upgrade to 4K, you'll have it ready. So I don't think there's any reason to pass this up.
Nice. And this kind of ports over the other features. Like the other features there wasn't anything new on that as far as features goes.
No, I think it just all was port overs, but there weren't that many on the old Blu-ray, but they've all been ported over from what I can tell. So yeah, like I said, the interview with the Coen brothers and Frances McDormand, that featurette, a American cinematographer article, still gallery and stuff, like just small little things, but they're ported over, so you're good to go.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, definitely one of my favorite movies. I definitely also echo the show is brilliant. That's coming back soon, and I'm really excited. Yeah, like please watch that if you haven't. It is amazing. I think the second season might be one of my favorite seasons of television. Full stop. Period.
Nice.
So that's awesome. Very cool. My next one is a 4K title. And then it's another one that probably everybody's seen, everyone's heard of. So like, I'm not gonna like spend too much time talking about it, but it is Jean-Luc Godard's Contempt with Brigitte Bardot and back very spicy. Nothing as far as like interior or anything. This does come with a digital code that's not in there now, but if you order it, you will have one. So this is the 60th anniversary. This is a very meta movie. Fritz Lang even plays himself. Brigitte Bardot is playing actress, and everybody is sort of involved with this Hollywood production that's not going very well. There is like this decaying marriage, and it's all this like posturing of the various guys in this movie, and it definitely turns ugly, and I think it's really interesting. I think as far as like the French New Wave, this is probably one of the most famous of those. Maybe like Breathless maybe being the most famous, but I will say that if you're not really used to French New Wave, you might not want to start with this one. It is very slowly paced, but I think that it's more methodical than you might maybe consider as far as like it's I don't think it's slower, but I feel like it builds, unlike some of the other films that I said that had a pacing issue, where stuff feels needless. This has a lot of like long dialogue sequences. It's not very flashy, but it is stylish. It is very well shot. Just beautiful locales. This 4K looks stunning. It really just has that nice, very vibrant color balance. You can tell it hasn't been like HDR to death. It looks really natural and crisp. The color balance is very nice. There is maybe a little bit of like blurring, a little bit of like, as you were saying about inconsistent grain. You have a little bit of that here, but not, again, not anything that you would probably, I think, notice unless you were really looking for it. Feature wise, there's an introduction to the film. I kind of wish there was more. I wish there would have been a commentary track or some more. Again, when you have a monumental film like this, it would be like great to have some archival stuff, some interviews. Again, a commentary track would have been perfect, but I mean, even a booklet, I was kind of surprised that wasn't included. But yeah, I mean, it looks nice. Again, it is well worth owning. Maybe not a great starter film for French New Wave, but certainly if you're a fan, this is a must. And you know, it was the movie I wanted to end on because I think these two kind of things I think kind of represent how much wide variety that we both like and enjoy. And hopefully our audience does as well. But we can have the trashy and the classy. Yeah, and but yeah, really nice release. I think it's priced accordingly where it's not doesn't have a lot of the bells and whistles, but if you just want the movie looking great, this is a really nice option. Who knows, we might get like a deluxe edition sometime down the road, but for right now, this is what we have, but it's still pretty darn good. So that is my final title. So
Yes. I just want to reiterate, as we discussed earlier, there is a giveaway for the Resident Evil 6-film 4K Ultra HD Steelbook collection. I displayed so many Steelbooks. Just imagine all of those, 6 of them in like one beautiful set. And you can win that. It's an epic set. Like I said, it's one of the biggest giveaways we've ever done. If you want to win it, simply, you've made it to the end. You know what we've talked about. Just comment with the title that we spoke about that you are most interested in, and just make sure you're subscribed and all that good stuff to the channel, and you'll be entered to win. And this is going through November 30th. So if you're catching this maybe like a week or two after this episode debuts, if it's before November 30th, you still have time. So comment and you are entered to win. And also check out our Geek Vibes Nation social media, like on Twitter, where I also give you additional ways to enter there. But yes, make sure this is a fantastic release, and we just want to show our appreciation to our fans with a really great release. You can win right now.
absolutely. And again, let us know if you did do the Nun II Sister Act 2 double feature.
Now you're giving them the cheat code. They had to watch that specific one to know. Now you know.
But I just want to know. I love or like chime in with your like weirdest double feature pairing. I also love adore hearing stuff like that as well. But that is so awesome. That's really amazing that yeah, like you said, that was like probably one of our biggest giveaways to date, and you don't want to miss that. So with that, again, like, subscribe, again, commenting what title you enjoyed the most that we covered will enter you to win. And as always, thank you for hanging out with us.